Okay, so for reading today, you have a couple of things to do in Schoology. So one thing you're going to be doing in Schoology is answering questions about the passage we're going to read together. And then you are going to do a word sort with suffixes. So all the suffixes you have in your notes, you'll just sort them out based on what they mean. So you do have these two things to do. We're going to read through this passage together. And then when it's your turn to work on the assignment, you can read through it one more time. And then you'll answer questions about it. Make sure you answer those questions carefully. And then you'll do your suffix sort. After that, for reading, you do need to do 30 minutes of reading time. So make sure that you are doing your 30 minutes of reading every single day. Okay, so we're going to read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. Then fill in the answer on your answer document. So while you're reading this, if you read it again at home or by yourself, you can take notes. Just jot down quick little notes that you notice so that when you get to the questions, you can go back in here and look. All right, so Roald Dahl. British author Roald Dahl wrote many books. Several have become classics. Kids still read James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The BFG, and Matilda. While Dahl may be best known as an author of famous children's books, he also had an interesting life unrelated to his writing. Adventure wasn't something Dahl just wrote about in his books. He loved adventures and looked for it in his own life. Before he started writing, he traveled to other countries, flew fighter planes, and worked as a spy. Dahl was born in 1916 in Wales, a country that's part of the United Kingdom. Dahl's parents named him after one of their heroes, Roald Amundsen. Amundsen enjoyed adventure too. He led a trip to the South Pole a few years before Roald Dahl was born. So these are two pretty popular books. They've even been turned into movies. So these are books by Roald Dahl, James and the Giant Peach, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Two of his most popular children books, and they are even popular movies. When Dahl was 4 years old, his father died. His mother thought of moving, but decided to stay in Wales. She valued education and wanted Dahl to be a good student. She thought it would be best for him to attend a boarding school in England. So I want you to notice it's got a little number 1 right there. You see any kind of weird little symbols or things that don't really go with the story, usually down at the bottom of the page, it'll tell you what that means. So there's a little 1 right here by boarding school. Go to the bottom of the page, and the little 1 means a boarding school is a school where students live during the school year while taking classes. So they don't live at their own house. They go and live at this school. They have like their own room, bedrooms. They share lots of other kids there, and it's like a place away from their home where they would go to school. Kind of like college, but it's for younger kids. While attending the boarding school, Dahl missed his mother and hated the endless rules. Although he did not like his new school, he did find a few things to enjoy. He realized he was great at sports, and he also developed a love of photography. After graduation, Dahl decided to get a job instead of going to college. He worked at the Shell Oil Company and learned new skills. Then the company sent him to East Africa. Dahl soon learned that Africa had many new things to see. Finally, at the age of 18, he was having an adventure. After World War II began, Dahl joined the Royal Air Force. He wanted to be a fighter pilot for Great Britain. There was a big problem, though. Dahl was very tall, 6.5 feet tall. The windscreen on the fighter plane was lower than Dahl's head. It was difficult for Dahl to breathe with the wind blowing in his face. He wore goggles to protect his eyes, but he still had to bend down and take deep breaths every few seconds. This did not stop him from doing what he wanted, though. Dahl tied a thin cotton scarf around his nose and mouth so that he could breathe. Flying came naturally to Dahl, so after several months of training with the Royal Air Force, he was ready to go on to battle. In 1940, Dahl received instructions to fly to a spot in the North African desert. He looked and looked for the landing strip but could not find it. With the plane running out of fuel, Dahl made a risky decision to land the plane in the desert sand. Although he was terribly hurt, he managed to crawl away. Dahl's recovery took months. Among other things, the crash left him temporarily blind. However, his sight did return and his body healed. After Dahl was once again fit for duty, he flew in many air battles. So here he is over here in uniform, 1941. Later, the British government found a new way for Dahl to help his country. Dahl was asked to work as a spy. In his new role, Dahl would gather information to help the British war effort. While working as a spy, Dahl began to write. Most of his writings were short stories for adults. He wrote spooky stories that often startled readers. The mystery stories were quite popular, and he began to write children's stories when he became a father. The first two novels, James and the Giant Peach and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, began as bedtime stories he shared with his daughters. The books quickly became bestsellers. Dahl was able to combine childhood mischief, suspense, and humor in a way that appealed to children. Although Dahl died in 1990, his books live on and are enjoyed by many children and adults today. So here he is in 1974. Lots of popular books and stories. You may have read some of them. You may have seen some of them that were turned into movies. So he is a pretty popular writer for children's stories. So your job, we just read the story together. You need to read it again, you can, but you have two jobs in Schoology. This first one are questions about that passage that we just read together. So there's a passage here if you want to open it in a new window, so you can kind of click back and forth as you're working. There are, 7 questions. Okay, 7 questions. You will have 2 attempts. So if you turn this in and you get less than a 70, I'm going to set it up right now. 2 attempts, you can see your score. If you get less than a 70, you need to try it again. And I will make sure it's open so you can get onto it when it's time. Okay, so there's your first job. Second job is a suffix sort. You can do whichever one you want first, but the suffix sort should not take you very long at all. You have all the suffixes. Some we have them all in our notes, but you have a little bit more in your notes. So you're going to take your notes from suffixes and tell me what those suffixes mean. S and ES, what does it mean? ED, what does it mean? It's all right here in your notes. It's all there for you. So make sure you pull out your notes when you do this assignment. This one is a grade also, so make sure you do it carefully. Okay, so that's it for reading. When you finish all of these things, you look over that story one more time. You do your 2 assignments in Schoology. You need to read for 30 minutes, and then you're all done for today. All done for today, and you guys can have a good weekend.